It is a huge, huge honor for me today to be interviewing Steve Cutbirth. You've been a legend in my mind and so many of my friends' minds for years. Let me read the bio. Let me my old man grandpa readers. You're a private general dental practice with focus on complex restorative dentistry in Waco, Texas since 1981. Began as the director now of the Center for Aesthetic Restorative Dentistry, which I like to think of as CARD, because I'm a Cardinals fan, and I know you're a Cardinals fan, and you hate the Dallas Cowboys. In Dallas for the past 15 years, the center teaches 5 to 10 hands-on 2-day Friday, Saturday lecture laboratory courses for practicing dentists. Each course builds on the previous courses: porcelain veneers, crown and bridge, replacing missing teeth, especially in the aesthetic zone, diagnosis and treatment planning of myofascial and interarticular pain and dysfunction, restoring the most complex cases, including severe wear cases, restoring vertical dimension, full and partial dental stabilization with small diameter implants. By the final course, the dentist should be able to confidently treatment plan and restore complex cases in conjunction with appropriate specialists. You've been married to Sharon for 38 years. Congratulations. 2 daughters, Catherine and Caroline, living in Austin and Nashville. 2 great son-in-laws, and we both have an incredible granddaughter. Mine is Taylor Murray, and yours is Genevieve, right?
Absolutely. Now, are you a country western fan?
You know, I grew up in Kansas. You cannot not be born and raised on country music if you grew up in Kansas.
Well, you may have to become one. My daughter and her son-in-law in Nashville are both country western singers, and he just had a #1 hit called "Smoke" in the band A Thousand Horses. So look that up.
Yeah,
they're really good.
Ryan,
really
we can Ryan, pull it up and I'll post it on Dental Town. I'll tell you what, seriously, you know, I've traveled all over. The 3 greatest music areas, in my opinion, is New Orleans, Bourbon Street, Memphis, Beale Street, and Nashville. I think, what do you call that area? 2nd Avenue, or what do you call that strip on
Broadway. Oh, they call it Music Row. And Nashville is Austin without the traffic. It is one of the most, if you can't live in Waco, Texas, Nashville is the 2nd best place.
And what's so cool about in all 3 of those cities, Bourbon Street, Beale Street, and what do you call it, Nashville? You said
Music Row.
Music Row. I mean, it just one restaurant, bar, nightclub, band, live band. I mean, if you don't like the band, all you got to do is walk out the front door and walk 100 feet, and there's another one. And
That's true.
It is just so interesting. I want to
That
start
is
off.
so true.
We call this dentistry uncensored. So I don't like to talk about anything that everyone agrees on. I like to go right to the most
Perfect.
controversial stuff. Mini implants. It seems like the oral surgeons and periodontists, I mean, if you, it's like minis or some kind of, you got cooties, and real men place real root form implants. And I've noticed that dentists don't understand the difference between Henry Ford's model, where he made 10 million cars. They're all the same price, they're all the same color. And then General Motors came out and destroyed them by having, you know, a low-cost Chevy, then a Pontiac, then a Olds, then a Buick, then a Cadillac. And these dentists and oral surgeons and periodontists, you know, grandma comes in, she can't wear a denture. They present a $50,000 treatment plan, 6 root forms on the lower, sinus lifts, root forms on the upper.
Amen, brother. Amen, brother.
And if they say no to the Cadillac, they just say, well, you're out of luck. And then there's real dentists who say, well, if you can't afford $50,000, why don't I just take your denture? Why don't we do some mini implants? And the patients love those mini implants. Do you agree or disagree that minis are kind of taboo and in the closet?
Okay, I teach both of them. I teach root form, I teach sinus lifts, I teach minis, and I have become totally fascinated by minis. Now, minis have gotten a bad rap because so many people are using them incorrectly. They're using them to replace, 4 missing teeth in the lower posterior arch, and so you can't clean underneath them, you can't clean around them. It's inappropriate. It's not mini or root form, it's both. And if we get around to looking at some of these cases, once I got going with minis, I thought, This is the implant, Howard, of the general dentist. This is the implant of the general dentist, but they have to be used correctly. And to use a mini implant, you absolutely have got to have the knowledge of how to reflect a flap and modify a ridge. If you, the big fat ridge that most courses teach has been in my office one time in the last 10 years. Most of them are either lipped or they're knife edged, and a mini implant is nothing more than a wood screw. It's nothing more than a wood screw. And it's just a small root form implant, but the advantage is most of the time you don't have to drill to depth. You're working in areas that there aren't nerves and vessels. If you ever lost one, they're easily replaced. It takes the fear factor out of it because you're not working where the nerves and the vessels are most of the time. Now, I've taken it, when I get interested in something, I think you and I have this in common. I get kind of obsessed with it. And anything that I do with any restorative material or technique has got to be something that I would be happy to present to the Restorative Academy or the American Academy of Aesthetic Dentistry. In other words, it's good dentistry. And so the things that we'll be looking at today and talking about are good dentistry with mini implants, but it's not either or.
So you wanted to show a case right now?
All right. Let's look at a few. Sure. You want to look at a few?
Sure.
And we can depart from those cases if you'd like.
No, just take it away.
Let me, if I could, I think it might be interesting to go through the evolution of the mini implant process in my practice. Let's see here. Okay. Now this is the ridge that you see when you go to most mini implant courses. When I went to the first one, this is the ridge they showed you. You put 4 implants in that big fat ridge. You put the housings in the denture. Oh my gosh, everybody is so happy. Now, by the way, oral surgeons and periodontists are very good people. They're very good people. But isn't it reasonable that they would probably not want general dentists to be placing implants? Could you imagine that?
Money is the answer. What's the question?
Money's the answer. I said,
no, that was a joke. Money's
yeah,
the answer.
yeah.
What's the question?
All right, as I went back to my practice and I was ready to put these implants into big fat ridges, this is what I saw. These kind of ridges, and you reflect that tissue, and that's what it looks like, a knife edge. Well, if a dentist tries to place any kind of an implant into that ridge, Howard, guess what's going to happen? It's going to fail. Now, with a mini implant, if you're restoring or securing a full denture, you need 2 mini implants for every root form implant. So it's 2 to 1. With a partial denture, it's 1 to 1 because it gets back to surface area. Remember, I teach both kinds. With a mini, you've got less surface area, and lateral forces are the things that can cause you to lose one. With partials, you've got the teeth to take care of the lateral forces. So with minis, you should just place 2 for every 1 root form implant, and they work just great. The success rate is the same for root form implants if you follow that scheme. So this is a fascinating case. This was one of the first people that came into my office. And this guy was a professor at Baylor University. And he'd quit teaching because he said every time he was speaking or laughing, his dentures would rise up and he's afraid he'd lose them. So he had a full set of dentures placed and he quit teaching that semester. Where you can see this is a tiny ridge. Now, with the techniques that you and I are going to talk about today, I don't want to toot my horn. I'm just saying dentists have to know how to do this. And what will happen is they will be able to treat 99% of edentulous cases that walk into their office. If they cannot reflect a flap and modify ridge, I would say that number is more like 15 to 20% because of the shape of the ridge. So you'll notice, again, this guy's got a little tiny knife edge ridge. I grew up ranching in West Texas. And when you're in the middle of the ranch and you've got nothing but baling wire and electrical tape, you've got to fix it. So I said, let's look at this and what can we do? Well, back to our wood screw situation, we've got to create a flat surface here so we can screw the implant into the bone, just like a wood screw into a flat wall. So I flatten the ridge. Bam.
That is gorgeous.
Retrofitted him to his existing denture. You know what this guy said when I got through? He said, Steve, if I'd met you 2 years ago, I would still be teaching at Baylor. Now here's the mandibular knife edge ridge, and where you can see she's lost some vertical dimension. But this is what I found, Howard. I completely agree with Gordon Christensen. These implants are fantastic. If you've got a thin ridge, they're easy to replace if you lose one. It's not like all on four. We do those and we teach those too. But these are just handy. So look at the width of that ridge. You want a millimeter of bone around the implant, any implant. So we reflect this tissue. Now, who could put any kind of implant into that, Howard?
That'd be tough.
Even you, with your great skill. Look at that. It looks like a wave in the ocean. You cannot believe some of the emails I've received from the traditionalist with mini implants, whatever you want to call them, saying I'm just ruining the technique because the technique is not to reflect the tissue. Total BS. It's just a small implant. That's all it is. It's a small wood screw implant. So all we do is take a sterile, coarse football diamond, flatten that out, boom. And then you treat it just like any other restorative case. You can tell we're missing attached gingiva right here. Not enough keratinized tissue, so when I went back to do the gingival graft, I placed another implant. And I don't do anything in my practice that does not work, from dental, sleep apnea, snoring appliances to mini implants. And I guarantee you, if you place these correctly, they're as predictable as root form implants.
What type of implant are you placing? What type of mini?
You mean what, titanium?
So you're really agnostic to minis. I mean, if you're an osteocyte, you really don't care what brand it is.
No, not really. I mean, I've had lunch with Victor Syndax. You familiar with that name?
Mm-hmm.
Victor's a guy who discovered the mini implant back in the 70s. Do you know the story on that?
No. How do you spell his last name?
Syndax. He's 85 years old. You ought to get him on the show. He's fascinating. The last 2 years, my wife.
Will you tell him to be on the show?
Oh, he'll do it. He is such a gentleman. But I want to meet people that are interesting. Dr. Pankey was one of my favorite people. Luckily, I got the opportunity to spend quite a bit of time with him while he was alive. And those people, the interesting thing about them, they don't talk a lot about dentistry. They're Renaissance people. So anyway, we had lunch with Victor in New York the last 2 Thanksgivings. And you want to hear the story of how the mini implant was?
But finish your deal on LD Pankey about how they don't talk about dentistry, they're Renaissance people. What did you mean by that?
I started at the Pankey Institute when I was 26 years old. And every time I went out there to teach, I was on the visiting faculty for 15 years, I would invent a way to go into his office and spend a half a day with him. And during the last years of his life, I had a letter correspondence going with him just to get inside his mind. I don't think Dr. Pankey ever had a conversation with me about dentistry. He talked about art. He talked about travel. He talked about ideas. He talked about investing. If I'd done what he said, Howard, I would retire both of us right now. But he was such a fascinating conversationalist. And Victor is the same way. Dr. Pankey said that any person in a important job or something that's halfway stressful must take a significant vacation every 3 months to regenerate. And I followed that I was 26 back then. I went to met him the week before I went into practice, and I've been in practice 38 years, and my wife and I followed that advice all this time. Okay, so anyway, you want to go back to these implants?
Absolutely.
I got fascinated by these. And so I started trying new things because the courses I'd seen, you see somebody placing 2 implants in an extraction site and placing a crappy crown on top of it. You can't clean it. It's non-hygienic, blah, blah, blah. That's not what this is. So I started at first just extracting teeth and then replacing them with dentures. These people are out of their mind happy because, like me, you can spot a denture patient with no implants from across the room because they've got to hold them in with their lips and their tongue. These people have perfectly natural facial features. You can't tell. Now, that said, I don't want to be an all or nothing person. If I had to have all my teeth extracted and artificial teeth placed, I would probably have all on 4 because I can afford it. But so many of your podcasts are on affordable dentistry. The thing that makes this so great, Howard, is it's a wonderful restoration and it's so much more affordable. We have had Baylor girls come to our office and other women come to our office wanting veneers, and they say, I want my teeth to look just like Doris's. And Doris was a denture patient with many implants. She didn't know those were not her teeth. Okay, so here comes the evolution. I wanted to do something to minimize the time, because if you take the teeth out, you've got to wait at least 3 to 6 months before you place the implants if you do it at the same time. And I was down in Mexico giving a seminar, and a dentist down there had an idea of placing the implants at the same time. So this woman was a landman, and I thought, what if I started with flattening this interproximal bone just a bit and placing the implants interproximally? And I told the patient, if it doesn't work, we haven't lost anything, we take them out, we wait the 3 to 6 months we were going to wait anyway, we come back and do it. Howard, fantastic. But you need to know how to bone graft. You need to know how to place membranes. It is not hard. It's easy. The other thing about this is you get the implants at exactly the right level. So here we are 3 months later, boom. Okay, now here comes the next evolution, I thought, because the maxilla is the hardest, because that's type 3, D3, D4 bone. And you don't have the interproximal areas like you have in the mandible. So I thought, what if you just went through the bottom of the socket? That bone is really hard down there because of the pounding of the teeth. So this wonderful woman had been like this for 20 years. She'd married an accountant named Donald and said, Donald, I want Dr. Cutbirth to fix my teeth. So here we go. Little thin ridge, out we go. Now, I'm only reflecting the maxillary tissue enough to see the alveolar crest. because I want to maintain the blood supply. I'm trying not to reflect it all the way up to their eyeballs because you lose that blood supply, even if the flap is a little bit open in the end. So these are 2.9 13 millimeter implants. The other great thing about these, you don't need a surgical guide. They can be off 30 degrees and still draw. So here's the bone
Now,
graft.
what brand are these at your place?
All
Are
right,
these
these
3M
are
MTech?
these are 3M.
Okay.
I primarily use 3M, Part Dental. Ron Bueller started MTech, and now he's got Part Dental. And then we're also working with a Korean company called Dentures, Dentis. I love the Dentures root form system. Any dentist that's not using this type system is crazy because it's got a platform on every burr. So once you get your working depth with the root form implants, you just go boom, boom, boom with those platforms and it automatically stops at the right depth. That's another conversation. Now you notice there's a little bit of a opening of the flap. I'll take that because we've got resorbable membranes on top. We're also using platelet-rich fibrin membranes, and this will heal beautifully. You go to the lower. Look at that little tiny knife edge ridge, Howard. How are you going to place an implant in that? Flatten it out. Here we go, 3 months later. Solid as a rock. That bone at the apex of the sockets is rock hard. Reline them. How about that for a life changer?
Oh my God, that is amazing.
Wait till you see this next one. If you could do one case like that in your life, it's worth going to dental school. There are some cases, you've probably got some too, that I can't present because I'm pretty emotional and I can't talk about the case because there's so much emotion behind it. All right, this is the same thing. This woman was from Austin. She'd been like that all of her life, smoked, quit smoking. By the way, if people smoke, I don't do implants.
Period.
I don't do them. I don't do well with failure. And if they're going to smoke, I don't want the case to fail. And
How long do they have to quit smoking before you'll touch them?
it's not so much how long before, it's after, because whatever happened to those teeth, whatever smoking did to the teeth, it's going to do the same damn thing to implants. So it's that they quit, and I want them to quit for at least 3 months just to prove they can. Now, if they're big boys and girls, I have them sign a sheet saying, if you smoke, these things are not going to work. If they start again, they're on their own, especially in the maxilla. Okay.
Well, what do you think? It seems like a lot of dentists I hear, my friends, they tell their patients they have to stop for 90 days before the implant surgery, and then they can't smoke for 90 days after, 3 months before, 3 months after. What do you think of that advice?
Vitamin C. How much vitamin C should you take a day? You don't know. It's a guess. It's a guess. It's the carbon particles, that get around the implant, that irritate the bone, that irritate the gum. It's the compromised blood supply. I don't have any trouble if they just quit. Now, the other big enemy of implants, root form or small diameter, is bruxism, lateral forces, especially in the first 3 months. The only ones the thing I take pride in my courses is, and I am no rocket scientist, you'll figure this out after we've spoken for a short period of time.
I doubt that.
I am every man. And I want them to see my screw-ups or my failures as well as my successes. And if somebody is a big dog bruxer, those lateral forces will get you. It goes back to ranching with me. If you've got a fence post in the ground and you move it right and left all the time, it's going to break down. Okay, so look at this. The beauty of this is you can recontour. Wait till you see this woman's profile when we get through. So take that big rhino horn bone off, place these implants in at the time of extraction. Now, here's what I'm finding. These are even more predictable if you place them at the time of extraction, but you place the implant toward the lingual of the socket, toward the lingual of the socket. That bone is so hard at the apex. I talked with Dr. Sindax about this at Thanksgiving, and he agreed that that's some of the best bone you're going to find in the maxilla. If you wait too long, it becomes less dense because you don't have that tooth pounding it. So here we go. Remember, they can be 30 degrees off. Now we're using platelet-rich fibrin in conjunction with cancellous bone and covering it with platelet-rich fibrin membranes and resorbable collagen membranes. Looks like hell when you get through. You'd like to see just the tip of the implant sticking up, and when you place it at the extraction site, one of the tricks, it's like throwing a pass in football. You've got to anticipate where that bone is going to be. Now look at the bottom. How are you going to place any kind of an implant in that, Howard? You can't. Not rocket science. Flatten it out. All the threads are covered with bone. Now this was a thin area right here. So bone grafting is easy. You break through the cortical plate, get into the medullary trabecular bone where the blood is, place your bone graft material, cover it with a collagen membrane. Again, you just want at least the tip of the implant sticking up. 3 months
Now, it
later.
looks like you have two different kinds of implants there.
Yeah, the gold ones are 2.9s. See, on the top, the maxilla use 2.4 and 2.9 millimeter. It's a wider thread, so you've got greater surface area. On the bottom, the lower use 1.8, 2.0, 2.1. Park has got a 2.5 and a 2 point and a
Who's
2.0.
Park?
Park Dental. That's Ron Bueller's new company.
Ron
3M.
Ron Bueller, you said started
Imtech.
Bueller, Bueller. He started Imtech.
He started Imtech, sold it to 3M, and then he started another implant company,
And what's it called?
Park Dental.
Part?
Park.
Oh,
P-A-R-K. P-A-R-K.
Huh, where do you get Park from? What does that mean?
That was the name of the company he bought. It's a less expensive implant. Now, they'd only have a 2.0 and a 2.5. See, I want you and I to invent our own implants, have our own implant company so we can get it just the way we like it. You know that phrase that guy says, I'm easy to please as long as I get it just the way I want it? All right, look at this woman. That's a good-looking woman, Howard. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this lip. We've got 1 million of them because you get it just right. Now, I love what you talk about in your other podcasts when you say, "I'm a minimalist. I like gadgets." I've published cases increasing vertical dimension and use the tip of a cotton tip applicator to increase the vertical because it happens to be 3 millimeters, which is all you want in the anterior. I don't like a bunch of gadgets. Dentists sometimes don't realize how much money they can waste on $100,000 gadgets and how much they have to produce to pay for that. If you can do it with a pocket knife and electrical tape and have an outstanding result, let's talk about that. Now, here's where these things are just magnificent. Removable partials. Because if you don't have an implant, the partial moves up and down on teeth, right? If you're just relying on clasp.
Right.
You got an implant, you have a stop. This woman was a nurse, lost that, was going to have dentures, full dentures, so we put the 2.9s in. Now, I always pull the housings in the office just so I'm sure they're perfect. If you have them processed, they might be off just a little tiny bit. So we did some restorative work on her, a little bonding, placed some crowns. Look at the vertical. Better?
Better, better.
Little thin ridge down here. You can't place any kind of an implant in that ridge without some bone grafting. That's why we teach these mini implant courses, which is a 2-day course for the pig jaw. Then I take dentists down to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. You can I do an aside with what you were talking about in another podcast? I've listened to a bunch of them in the last few days. You were talking about dentists having to spend $200,000 before they place their first implant, right?
Correct.
Well, guess what? It's BS to begin with because all they've done is gone through simulation courses. Dentists have got to place implants on real people to be confident placing them on real people in their office. So I'm a think to the end and work back guy. I want dentists to apply the things we teach them. We're not just doing a dental seminar. So we teach the mini implant courses with pig jaw. Then we take them 12 at a time down to Puerto Vallarta to a gorgeous clinic down there. All the cases we want, we've got me and 3 other surgeons with these 12 that hold their hand and get them through placing implants. And we teach sinus lifts, and we teach root form, and we teach mini, bone grafting, everything on real patients, and just burn it down for 4 days, and they come home and they're ready to go. I've got a good friend that spent 20 grand on a course at a leading dental school. He never placed an implant on a real person. He'd never placed an implant. You talked about you spent $200,000 and never placed an implant. I want to get these dentists placing implants, total cost, beginning to end, including the kit, for 15 to 20 grand.
You know
They're
what your
confident placing implants.
You know what your best marketing would be though? Your best advertising? It's very hard to go from a full page ad in a magazine to I'm going to spend $20,000 and go to Puerto Vallarta. I mean, it's just too
No,
big a
no, you're
leap.
not going to spend
No,
20,000 going to Puerto Vallarta. You're going to spend. I'm talking total
right.
from the pig jaw courses, Puerto Vallarta, and buying the kit.
Is how much?
20.
Yeah.
But 20.
But here's what I think you should do. We put up 350 courses on Dentaltown, and they've been viewed over 500,000 times. No one's going to learn how to place implants by an online CE course.
No.
But if you put up a complete curriculum of online CE, going through all these cases and sinus lifts, and you just showed your magic, you will wow these guys while they're sitting there on their couch on an iPad, and then they'll sign up for your course, and then they'll go down there and they'll do it. I want them to make the decision to go. I mean, I think Zig Ziglar's right that people need more motivation than they do information. And I think you've been lecturing forever. You're a natural. You should make an online CE course, and then at the end, if you want to sign up for more information, go to this website. What is your website?
Okay. Hey, Bub. Yeah. What's our website?
Centerforard.com.
Centerforard.com. CENTERFORARD.com.
And you went with that because ArizonaCardinals.com was already taken?
No, it's my daughter put it together when she was the CEO of our company. It stands for Center for Aesthetic Restorative Dentistry.com.
Center for
Yeah.
ARD. And what are they going to find on that website?
What are they going to find on that website, Bo?
They can register online.
Everything.
Courses.
Our card courses, our implant courses. But see what we're really good at throwing the football, the technical part. We're not real good marketers.
I know that's why I'm chasing you. I think if you put up I mean you have all these different courses. If you put up like an hour explanation of each deal, the minis or the sinus lift or the bone grafting or whatever, and they saw this, then they're going to say, oh, I can go do this hands-on on a pig job in Waco, or I could go to Puerto Vallarta. I think it would bridge the gap. I mean, you got to bridge the gap between who's Steve Cutbirth and I'm going all the way to Mexico. And I think the online CE, that's why I wanted you to do a podcast because, I just want these guys to get her done.
Here's the
And
thing. Here's the thing that's so much fun about this, because our practice is not based on production. We've never had a production goal. We've never had a practice management person come into our practice. We're in a small Texas town, Waco, Texas. Remember the Branch Davidians?
yeah,
I mean, it's not,
what year was that?
I don't even know. Most people in Waco don't even know where it is. It's in a little town called Elk that's about 40 miles outside of Waco. It's almost closer to Dallas. But we go in every day and it's about the product. It's not about the money. And the money has taken care of itself. I was years ago, one of the things we teach is our delivery system. How do we communicate? Remember, I think to the end and work backward. One of the big points that's lacking, in my opinion, from teaching dentists all these years is communication. Because you and I, Howard, have an obligation to every patient that has the courage to call our office to give them a clear idea of what their condition is and what their options are. I am a visual learner. You could talk to me all day long about how to do something, but if I can't see it, I don't understand it. So we've developed a system of photography. If I show a mini implant, a dentulous person, we talk too much as dentists. Do you find that to be the case?
Yes.
We just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. If I show a patient, she's about to lose her teeth or has lost her teeth, I don't say a word sometimes in my consults. I bring out this, I flip to this. I haven't said a word. While she's looking, I'm on the computer. I show her that, and I show her this. She is now to rob the bank to get that. You hear what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
We're talking, we're BSing. Quit talking, start showing. It's the same thing with these seminars. Somebody's going to get up and tell you the history of the mini implant or the dental implant. Who cares? Does it work or does it not? So these kind of people with partials, it's so fascinating. Look at this. What are you going to do with this woman? She's been a cripple with a denture and a crappy partial for a long time. Look at that little nothing ridge. Make it so you can put the wood screw in the ridge. You could put an implant in there.
You talked
Ryan
about
could put an implant in there.
you said these were 3M's MTech, but you also mentioned Ron Bueller started Park Dental, and then you also
Yeah.
mentioned another one from Korea.
Dentist, Dentis.
And tell us about those two companies. And then there's another brand named Stern Gold. Talk about each one of
Get
those
over
companies.
it. They're titanium. They're titanium. I like the thing I like about 3M is they've got the 2.9 and the 1.8. Sometimes you just need a 1.8, like this case right here. See how we've got we need a little more bone right there. So I've perfect rated the cortical plate, but I can't get a 2.1 in there, even a 2.0. So and if you extract a tooth, you want the biggest implant you can place, the 2.9. The thing you and I like about the mini is you don't have to drill to depth most of the time. You just screw it in and it bites.
So Ron Bueller sold MTech to 3M, and now he
Right.
started his own Park Dental.
Yes.
It seems like a common business strategy in dental implants. I mean, who was the other guy? Jerry Resnick. He started.
Let me
what was
tell
it?
you this. Let me tell
Corvat?
you this. Let me just say this. This will probably be the last interview I ever do with anybody. 3M, can you use the word screwed? Screwed themselves. They were so far ahead of the peloton with 3M, and I mean with their implant, the mini implant. When they bought MTech, nobody else was doing it, and they were supplying implants for some of our courses. I said, people, run with this. Really teach people how to do it, but they were stuck on giving 100 seminars a year, just showing people how to do a big fat ridge with implants. The supply rep said, we'll go into offices and have 3 cases scheduled, and we can't do any of them because there's no bone. And dentists don't know how to reflect the tissue, flatten the ridge, create a ridge that's acceptable to mini implants. They completely blew it with the mini implant. They lost their advantage. Now the Peloton has caught them. And I think they'll end up selling their system. I really do. They've just completely wasted. They had people at the top that had no idea what they were doing. They had no idea what they were doing, and they killed the goose that laid the golden egg.
Well, isn't the marketing message today that you don't need to lay a flap? You go buy a 3D CBCT for $100 grand. Remember, they're trying to sell the equipment.
Ron,
you gotta buy the 3D. Then you're going to send it to the lab, who's going to make a surgical guide. And then you're going to snap it in the mouth, and Stevie Wonder could place the implant.
Guess how many surgical guides I've ever made?
0.
You got a 30% deal. And you make a surgical guide, you go to all this stuff. Remember, I teach people how to increase vertical dimension using the wooden end of a cotton tip applicator. If you understand the technique, you can do it with your pocket knife. We're so gadgeted. And that's why dentists are, there's good gadgets out there, don't get me wrong. But if it's not improving the quality of the product, don't use it. And bear with me here. You get into all these surgical guides and things like that and trying to figure it out on a CT scan. Well, if you were having an implant placed, wouldn't you rather somebody just reflect a flap and have a look? Rather than trying to figure out you've got this big lipped thing and then what's it going to look like? Just reflect it, flatten it, get it like you want it, and put the wood screw in the wall.
On my 2 implants, I just had them make the incision under the armpit so that you couldn't see it on my chest.
Usually a scrotal incision is the best one. Go up that way.
So let's go back. You've never made a surgical guide, but what about CBCT? What percent of these cases do you use a CBCT on? Do you have a CBCT? What are your thoughts on CBCT? Because it's a $100,000 decision.
Well, it's good for root form implants if you're doing, if you're working in the area of the sinus or the nasal orifice, right? Those are the big holes I'm worried about. If I'm working in the area of the inferior alveolar nerve or the middle foramen, it's a good idea. With small laminate implants, though, guess where you're not working? Guess. In the middle foramen, inferior alveolar nerve, you're kind of around the sinus. There's a big, oh my gosh, that was a funny thing. I was so worried when I started placing it. I thought, what if you go into the sinus? And I talked to all the surgical people for 3M and different ones. They said, I don't know. Well, then we gave a course on all on 4 at our teaching center at CARD. This surgeon was placing these root form implants through the sinus into the zygomatic arch, dude. Are you kidding me? What are we thinking? You're not going to hurt anything going into the sinus. The problem is you want enough bone to stabilize the implant. The implant's 10 millimeters long. If it's not an attractive thing if you're there more than 1 millimeter to 2, but if you're a couple of but the real problem is you don't have enough implant in the bone because that bone over the sinus is crappy bone. It's D4 bone. So your problem is stability. There really is, I don't want to encourage dentists to go into the sinus, but that's not really the issue. It's that you don't have enough bone to stabilize the implant in that area because it's soft bone.
But do you have a CBCT? I mean, again, on these cases, what percent of these did you get a CBCT on?
On these?
Yeah.
0.
Yeah, 0.
Yeah.
So do you have a CBCT in your office?
No, I've got an endodontist that has one. It's not cost effective.
So you're of the camp that just have one available that you can use, but don't buy the $100,000 machine.
Just remember this, what I'm about to tell you. It's going to change your life. Ready?
Yep.
Money will not make you happy, but it will let you be miserable in some very nice places. So I want to charge the patient as little as I can. I want to have the things in my office that I need to deliver the highest quality dental product in the world. But I'm not going to go for every thing that comes along. If I can share it with somebody, how often am I going to use a cone beam? How often are you going to use a cone beam? I'm in solo practice. It doesn't make sense, and I'm not using it for many of these cases. A lot of times I'll use a pano and a CT scan. That's standard of care. Most of the time, though, you could do these small diameter implants with periapical radiographs, and here's how you do it. If because you've got angulation issues and things like that, you drill the pilot hole and you screw the implant in partial way. If you've got any question, take a radiograph. You've got digital radiography measure.
But what would you say to these kids, though? Because one of the most controversial columns I've ever written in my life that just got eaten alive is it's kind of like the reviews of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
You either loved it or hated it. But there's just a lot of people who believe that the advantage of a CBCT is that you can get a surgical guide and you don't have to lay a flap and you don't have to do any of this stuff. And then there's other people like you who are saying, dude, you gotta. I mean, you're a doctor.
What are you talking about, though?
I know.
No,
And here's the thing
No.
that I want to say to my listeners, because you're talking to thousands and thousands of dentists right now, is that all the. I mean, I don't want to call you old. Do you care if I say your age?
No.
I'm 53. You're 61. When I talk to anybody who's 60 and over who has sunk 10, 20, 30,000 implants, they say, I never use any of those surgical guides, and you just lay back the bone and do it. And then you
Hey.
talk to everyone who's 40 and under on the circuit, and they're like, oh, no, you need a $100,000 CAD cam. You need this fancy surgical guide and blah, 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 blah. And I think the general market wants to hear that they don't have to do anything. They can just,
You probably can't use the word bullshit on your program, can you?
hell no.
Okay, good. I'm glad to know that. I won't use it. No, there was a guy in dental school that taught us precision attachment dentures. Partials. I promise you, when you got through with that course, everybody there thought he was the only guy that could do it. And so dentists are so in their own head about implants. Think of it like ranching in West Texas. Don't screw up. Be careful. If you're doing a root form implant in the posterior, don't drill all the way to depth right from the get-go. Go just the distance in that safe. Take a PA. Measure. Stay clear of that stuff. Just don't get in such a big hurry. See, I found it interesting years ago when these different groups studied our practice, and they said, you realize you've got I hate to say this because I hate to even talk about money because we never even think about that in our practice. We booked to a system and they said, you've got one of the most productive dental practices in the United States, maybe the number one at this institute. And I said, you got to be kidding me, because we don't do it the way anybody else does it. They said, how do you do it? And so we book to a system, but we don't get in a hurry. What I find, Howard, is patients are dying for somebody to just take the time to get it right. Take the time to get it right. We just get so gadgeted out. I'm not against them. I mean, I love scanning and cone beams and digital impressions and all that kind of thing, but you don't have to have it to do world-class dentistry, period. You just have to slow down a little bit and not delegate all these things to people that may not be up to the task, and just take your time.
So talk more about the CARD Center, the Center for Aesthetic Restorative Dentistry. You're in Waco, but this is in Dallas.
It's in Dallas. Well, years ago,
Go
CARD.
ahead.
I taught started with the Pankey Institute the week before I went in practice. And so I taught out there on the visiting faculty for about 15 years, but I'm always kind of restless. I'm always thinking, how could you do something better? And I'll always be indebted to Dr. Pankey and Guy Haddix and Bill Bryant and Mel Steinberg and Lauren Miller for showing me a way that I could be in dentistry. Because when I got out of dental school, I really didn't see a model that interested me. That sweaty-headed dentist running from room to room, seeing 30 people a day is not in my wheelhouse. So they acquainted me with kind of a different idea. So then Baylor Dental School asked me if I would set up a continuum program for them. They wanted an advanced program. I said, I'm ready to go because I know how I've always wanted CE. So we use the continuum method, but we start the first 2-day course. It's half a day lecture, half a day hands-on in the laboratory with models. We do the fine points of porcelain veneers, prep, impression, provisionalization, and the fundamentals of anterior aesthetics. Lip position, gingival line, incisal plane, pupillary line, those types of things. Tooth length, width. Second course is anterior crown and bridge and replacing missing teeth in the aesthetic zone. Now here's a misnomer, Howard. These days everybody thinks when you're missing, this is gonna hurt. This is gonna hurt. Everybody thinks if you've got a missing maxillary anterior tooth, you place an implant, right? Right?
Right, but that's wrong, isn't it?
You see the people I'm seeing, these attractive women with high lip lines. Dude, I love implants. I love implants. But I've got a whole seminar on what can go wrong with an implant in the aesthetic zone. You may place a perfect implant, but that tissue and bone is so thin, that black implant may shine through the bone. You ever seen that?
Yep.
Or you lose a papilla, or the gingival line's not right, or, just so many things that when I see these people, they're not coming to see me for a try. They're coming for a result. So a fixed bridge in that situation, if you think to the end and work backward, and it's got to be magnificent, may be the most predictable result. Now, if they've got a low lip line, who cares? It's not that big a deal. But you know the one I'm talking about. And you've got to go to our bag of tricks and say, what do we have to replace that missing tooth with? What do we have? Implant, removable, fixed bridge. So, someone like me, I've got an implant replacing my cuspid. I've got a low lip line, turned out beautifully. Those are the cases that you see at the seminars, but I see the ones that aren't like that. What were we talking about?
The Dallas Center.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So the second one is replacing missing teeth in the aesthetic zone and anterior crown and bridge. The third one is a fantastic method of treating intra-articular /TMJ and myofascial pain cases. We teach them how to treat these, and from giving seminars on this and studying this and bringing in experts for the last 20 years, we've come up with a method that is incredible, and you don't treat the disc. Think about it.
So how many different courses do you have at the Dallas Center, Carl?
All right, the fourth one is complex restorative, including how to increase vertical dimension and how to restore the severe wear case. And then the fifth course is our system. How do you deliver the product? Then, once you've gone through the 5 2-day courses, that's called the Advanced Restorative Series. The next 5 are the Master Series. I give the seminar on Friday, which is a complex version of what we talked about in that course the year before, and then we bring in specialty people. That could include gingival grafting. It could include Clear Correct, which is like Invisalign. It's an orthodontic tray system.
That's out of Dallas, isn't it? That's in your backyard.
He's out of Houston, or near Houston, Galveston. Fantastic orthodontic system.
He's the one who started Invisalign.
No, it's another guy.
The Clear Correct?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's the guy who started Invisalign. Then, like Apple, then they ran him off when they went publicly traded, and then the patents and the everything expires, and then
See,
so he starts.
You could be right. I think he was just using the story I heard from him was he was using Invisalign and thought he could do it a different way and set up this company. You could be right. I'm not a real good on details on things like that. But we also we teach everything that has to do with restoring the most complex case that could come into your office. And we teach systems of restoration so that you look at every case exactly the same way. CARD is not about doing a full mouth reconstruction on every case that comes in. It's golden rule dentistry. You know what my least favorite word in dentistry or healthcare is?
Obamacare. Did I get it right?
No.
What is it?
Sell. I hate that word. That word has no place in healthcare when delivered by the practitioner. We should, our mantra is do the right thing. What would you do for your wife or your parents or your daughters? But then do it well.
I want to ask you some controversial questions.
No.
You're going over some things that I just like to ask questions that I know are crazy debates on the message boards of Dental Town. We got 205,000 dentists on that website.
Okay.
Some people treat restoring the worn dentition, and they show these wear cases, and then they basically repair them with 28 units of crown and bridge. Then these other people are saying, well, that's interesting. Because the patient wore down their teeth, your treatment is to stick the tooth in a pencil sharpener and file it all down. So you didn't treat the severe worn dentition. You actually wore it down another 20 years. What's your comments on that?
Okay. Again, go to the end and work backward. What's the patient's objective? That's why you got to interview somebody before you examine them. Why are you here? And we've only got so many options. If somebody's worn their teeth down, you either you're either repairing the teeth they've got, or you're taking them all out and putting something in, right? And then it gets down to money. Sometimes I'll sing that Willie Nelson song, if you got the money, honey, I got the time. But what I don't want to make is a bad situation worse. So they've got the teeth. It's like having multiple parachutes. I'd rather work with their teeth than do this giant, take out the teeth, put in all on four, and then they spent 60 grand on that and it fails and we've used our second parachute. I try to think if it's like me. The main thing with me, if I had that situation, is not really the money. It's the result. And if I can do something with the teeth and still have all on four or small laminar implants with removable dentures as a backup, I'd rather do something with the teeth. So what we do is minimalist preps. I mean, we can have a whole podcast. I've got a whole series on
you should do this
increasing vertical.
You should do the online CE courses, because then we give them ADA credit, AGD credit. I think you would
well, help me. I don't know how to do that stuff. I just know how to do dentistry.
Yeah, I mean, you have so many, every one of those 5 courses, then you have the 5 advanced courses. If you just did a 1-hour course explaining what they're going to learn over the next 2 days and giving away kind of like the greatest hits album, these kids are going to watch that. And the next thing they know, they branded the card, the Center for Aesthetic Restorative Dentistry in Dallas, and then they say, that they're going to go down there and see it. I think it's very counterintuitive, and it's the best marketing you can do.
All right, look at this. You're going to find this interesting. What would most dentists do in a case like that, Howard?
Probably refer to a periodontist for crown lengthening or something.
Well, most of them would probably replace those 2 crowns. That she was from Austin too, and they were going to replace those 2 crowns. And we'd restored her sister, and I published this article. It's called Getting the Lines Right. And so what we teach dentists is, how do you get the lines right? If you don't get the lines right, and people think crown lengthening is gingivectomy. Hell no. Pat Allen, the great periodontist in Dallas, he taught me that if whatever you remove however much gingiva you remove, you got to remove the same amount of bone, or it's going to grow back, and then you're just going to have a crappy gingival line.
Absolutely.
All right, so once we do that, now we're going to remove. We had to bleach the teeth. We teach them internal teeth bleaching also. And now we're going to do our crown lengthening. And you're going to change this woman's life. First, you do your gingivectomy. Just use Pat's technique. Then, if you remove 3 millimeters of gum and you want the final gingival line to be 11 millimeters from the incisal edge to the gingival line, then the alveolar crest has got to be 14 millimeters, right?
Right.
All right, so here we go. Let that heal. Place veneers. This woman went from being a telephone answerer for a hotel company to in charge of telephone answering for this company across the United States. But if you don't go for the gusto and get the whole thing, it ends up being a lukewarm result. See, now we've got the pupillary line parallel to the gingival line to the incisal plane and the lower lip. Okay.
You have so many cases. Unbelievable. How many cases do you? How many PowerPoint cases do you have?
Million.
A million.
Every case I've ever done, probably.
Is that right?
See, I see one case every morning from 8 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon.
Just one.
One.
That is just unbelievable.
Well, we're just, the thing, I think dentists would find this interesting and these cases interesting because every case is exactly the way I want to do it. There's not any compromise. It's exactly the way. I mean, you may do mini implants with dentures instead of all on 4 for finances, but there's not any compromise. But look at this with these mini implants. This is
how much are your courses at card?
What's that?
How much do your courses cost?
What do they cost, Bo? How much do our courses cost?
Get Bo over here. Introduce Bo.
Come on over, Bo.
$14.75.
Bo, come over here and take a look. What do they cost?
The ARS are $14.
I want to see you on here. Here's the guy you'll be dealing with right here, Bo.
Are you Bo Jackson? Are you Bo Jackson who played both baseball and football?
Bo Durkin is Bo. There's 2 people I know that are bona fide geniuses. Bo is one, and my wife's the other one. Bo is a technological genius. Other genius too, but he is a technological genius.
So your course is $14.95, and that's a 2-day course, Bo?
$9.95 for the minis.
And what?
$9.95.
Oh, and the mini courses are about $1,000. The mini implant courses are about
that's a pretty low cost course compared to Pankey's, Spear, Coyce, those to LVI. I mean, wouldn't you say?
We're not trying to make money off of them. They're $1,500 basically a course, and you go through 5 of them. What's that? About $7,500 to go through the whole thing. Then here's what I said when I said I set it up the way I always want it. Then you go through the master's courses. There's 5 of those, about the same course. So you spend about 15 grand total. Then you're automatically a member of our alumni association and our teaching faculty, and you help me with the courses in the laboratory and things like that.
Bring Bo back.
Come back. And you spend $2,000 a year. You come to all the courses. He wants you to come back over here, Bo.
Hey, Bo. I know Steve isn't. You're his technological man. So here's the deal. I'm Howard at Dentaltown, and Dentaltown has 205,000 dentists. We put up 350 courses. They've been viewed over 500,000 times. The other Howard is Howard Goldstein, so he goes by Hogo, Hogo at dentaltown.com. But call him up, and he's got 5 different courses. Put an hour of this PowerPoint slide for each one of those courses. So it'll be like here's a 1-hour online C-course, and you can charge for it, make money there if you want to, whatever. But the bottom line is they'll start seeing Steve, they'll start seeing the center, and after they see all these cases, they're going to say, wow, I mean, I'm not going to learn how to do this on my couch on an iPad. I'm going to go to Dallas and take the hands-on course and do these. So, Bo, if you could help them do that, that would be amazing.
You know, the funny thing is, we don't do these courses to make a living. I mean, we make a little money. We do it because it is so much fun. And these dentists are so interesting. And there's got to be a different way other than just patching people up. But you
Well,
can.
my theory on the teachers and all the lectures that I think I've never met a child who at least one day during elementary school decided they wanted to be a teacher. I mean, everybody's got some little. Everybody wanted to
Right.
be a teacher. A teacher. Some people just love to share. They love to share information. It comes from their passion. You're obviously a massively passionate guy, and so since you just love it and you're passionate and you're successful, you just can't contain yourself from not wanting to share it.
Look at this with these mini implants. This is just so cool what you can do with these. This guy had broken this old precision attachment partial. He is from a small West Texas town. He'd driven 3 hours to our office, said, what are we going to do? So the thing about having a little time to ponder the great truths, I love the abstractness of it. I thought, okay, I'm going to do something with this. So I mark it, cut those attachments off, place these implants, place 3 of them right there. Just cut the hell out of that old partial so I can get the housings on there. This is all in one appointment. Pick them up with a hard pickup material. You want him to bite into that so he doesn't get it on his lower teeth. Rework that thing. This guy, I said, how is it? He said, I have a hard time getting it out. They're just handy. It's tools. It's a tool.
Well, Steve, I can't believe the hour is up, man. That was the
Okay.
most amazing hour in the world. If you guys want to hear more of this, go to www.center4ard, center, CENTER, 4, FOR, ARD. That's for the Center for Aesthetic Restorative Dentistry.
Here's a phone number.
Phone
that
number?
Bo just gave me, 888-271-7774. 888-271-7774. And will they get you, Bo? You will get to talk to the Bo.
And what's Bo's, what's the email address for Bo?
Email address for you. This one? Okay. Card, it's CARD 1611 at gmail.com.
And what's the 1611? Where'd that come from?
That's what is that? 1611.
Or address.
Our address is 1613. Okay, 1611. Oh, yeah, that's our card address. Our office is 1613. The card address, get this, the card address is 1611 Lake Success.
Seriously?
I'm serious.
Did you rename that street yourself?
No, it was there when we moved in.
Well,
It's
hey,
a little,
go ahead.
it's a little back street. You've got to be going there to get there.
And what is the class size like?
Well, it's interesting because back in '08, we'd had 50 in a class heading for 100. In '09, I talked to Bo and I said, well, how many do we have starting next month? And he said, 6. I said, 6 what? And he said, 6. So something changed with dentistry after '08. Now we have about, we'd like to keep it to between 20 and 50 in a class because my teaching faculty is assisting me with the hands-on portion. But dentistry has changed since '09. Our practice is better than it's ever been. But I think I don't really know, Howard, what the shift has been, but something has changed since then. Have you seen it?
Well, I mean the only full-time economist I know is the one that works for the president or for the American Dental Association. He's been doing this full-time for years. And he wrote an interesting article called "Lattes." What was it? Dentist, lawyers, and lattes. Dentists, lawyers, lattes. And if you look at the data from 2008, the only people who have not recovered back to 2008 levels are dentists, lawyers, and coffee shops. And I saw in 2008 and 2009 about 85 dental offices go bankrupt in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's an amazing.
But let me tell you, you can't out cheap the corporate dental folks. You can't out Walmart them. And to me, I mean, our practice it's always been good, but I mean, now it's just killing them in a positive way because people are looking for places to go, not to toot my own horn. There are other people that know how to do this that are going to get it right and not just process them. And I think dentists have fallen into that mentality of we've got to get into this managed care, all the cheapo. I was talking, I reconstructed a guy that was head of a big dental insurance company. Have you got time for this story?
Yeah, absolutely.
And every time he came in, he wrote a check and gave it to the front desk. He was from Plano, Texas, which is near Dallas. We never talked about the cost. And we were doing a full mouth reconstruction. He'd just beat the hell out of his teeth. And so every time he'd come, we'd go to lunch at Uncle Dan's barbecue place in Waco. Best barbecue place in the country, by the way. And I said, how does this managed care stuff work? And he said, well, we see what our competition is paying and we pay less. And I said, well, then don't they pay less than you? He said, yes. And I said, then what happens? He said, then we pay less than them. And I said, well, eventually what happens? He said, Steve, dentists would sign up for these programs. If we didn't pay them anything, they were just on the program. So that changed. I wasn't cut out for that anyway, but that changed my feeling about those. They have no idea what it costs you to deliver a product. They're just trying to compete with
Hey, if you download
the other companies.
Oh, did you go ahead?
That's it.
If you on your smartphone you can download the Dentaltown app, but somebody said is looking for a speakers. He goes, and someone writes, you should consider Dr. Stephen Cutbirth, who created the Center for Aesthetic Restorative Dentistry in Dallas. He has an introductory class. It would be awesome to attend as your group. They talk about you on Dentaltown. There's a search bar, so if you searched in your name or the Center for Aesthetic Restorative Dentistry, you could read what everyone's saying. But Steve, with 205,000 dentists on that, the best marketing you could ever do. You got all those cases that you've been working on since you graduated in 1979. Just put up the more of those cases you put up, the more Stephen Cutbirth will be a household name, and you'll fill your classes in Dallas.
We appreciate what you're doing for dentistry. Thank you for having me on the show.
And I can't believe I just gave an endorsement to a Cowboys fan.
Well, I'm kind of they're going to get better.
They're going to get better. Boy, that's a one-man team. I mean, when Romo's there, they're undefeated. When he's out, they can't win a game.
Well, and the quarterback, Witten, went to Houston. He couldn't win a game at Dallas. He's won 2 in a row at Houston. How about the Baylor Bears this year?
I want to seriously thank you for all that you have done for dentistry for so many years. You've taught so many dentists. You have so many raving fans. Seriously, Steve, thank you for all that you've done for dentistry.
Thank you, Howard.
All right, have a rockin' hot day. And get a hold of Howard Goldstein. Hogo at dentaltown.com.
Thanks a lot.
All right, buddy.